Welcome back to Next Stage Podcast, everybody. We got Cody Zanard joining us today, a.k.a. Cody Freedom. He is a member of the band's Shady Street Allstars, as well as, what was the second one? The
Hempsteadys.
Hempsteadys, yes, okay. And he's joining us here to talk a bit about music and his roles and all that. So primarily saxophone is what you are in those two bands, right?
Correct, yeah.
And are these bands that you formed around being a sax player, or was it like stuff that was already going on and you joined in? Like, how did you approach starting a band being a sax player?
Well, the Hempsteadys was one that I joined. That was like, I'm the fourth sax player or something like that, you know? That's 11 people come and go in that band. Pretty solid for the last couple of years. Shady Street Allstars was created out of another band kind of losing a drummer, and then we just handpicked a bunch of musicians that we wanted to play with, and they all said yes. So we started on the day Kobe Bryant died.
Oh, well, that's an unfortunate thing to have to remember and commemorate, but
well, it's the only reason why I know what day it was anyways, I guess, because there was a significant event, so I wouldn't remember otherwise.
Well, I guess it marks the time for sure. And so in Shady Street All-Stars, that's the one there's some songs up on Spotify that people can check out.
We have one more song to release in 2 weeks, or on Black Friday next week. I don't know. Otherwise, yeah, we're putting out the most current stuff with that band.
And is this I guess you would call it, it's kind of like it has a reggae feel, sort of funk and stuff. Is there like a category you'd put it in, or you don't really like to do that?
No, it's definitely some sort of ska, reggae, punk band. Like the third song we're putting out is going to be a little more punk than the other two have been so far. Not really limiting ourselves, though.
Now, is that your background? Did you come from like punk stuff? Did you come from reggae, ska? Like, what did you get influenced by?
Yeah, I was listening to street punk music back in high school, and then got into the ska scene because all the other band kids were in ska band. So I'd go and see their band, and then eventually joined that band when someone left. And then out of those ashes, we created a different band, and I don't know. I've played saxophone with a couple of punk bands, but more or less the ska scene is what I know. So
you said street punk. Like, what is street punk? I know there's so many genres. You've got like, all, crust punk, grind punk, oi. It's like, what does street punk mean to you?
Street punk's kind of like oi, but also there's more of a fashion side to it, I guess, with like the studs and the spiky hair and that stuff.
So is it like the typical classic punk you'd think of, like when the Sex Pistols and such were making?
Yeah, that's the imagery that I think people would think of with that, for sure.
And was that just the music that like grabbed you and you fell in love with, or were you like influenced by other people, or they're like the older cool kids who are listening to that and that's what got you into it? Or
there's definitely this one camp counselor when I was at camp that had like Dead Kennedys and AFI and wore Dickies black pants all summer long. Like, so I think that's probably where the basis of my aesthetic from that comes from. Otherwise, I've never really limited myself to music styles necessarily, but definitely had certain ones shine through at different times, and clothing styles or something.
Yeah, cool before comfort with the black Dickies in the summer all the way through.
Yeah.
So were you always a horn player, or like was that what you started out with?
Yeah, that's back in fourth grade. I probably wanted to play an oboe or bassoon, and then that was just not a beginner instrument. So my mother put an ad in the newspaper that the little headline on the wanted section was "Single mom looking for sax," and I got a free saxophone out of it, and I've been playing ever since. So
Oh, wow. Like any lessons, or you just picked it up and figured it out?
Mostly just like school band, like no private lessons really. Honestly, I'm probably was mostly the same talent wise for a bunch of those years, and it was only after when I started playing not written out music, learning how to play by ear with other people writing music that I've actually grown more than playing the classic hits, the classical songs that you play in band class growing up or Christmas concert stuff.
Yeah. Do you think that that kind of traditional way of learning music can like turn people off or be like a roadblock because it's not as like fun and cool? Like it seems like when you got out of that, you said that's when you blossomed with playing, more competently.
Well, I think there's definitely some skill to reading music, like, to be able to play with someone who has something written out and read it right there on the spot and not need to do half an hour going through the chords or something like that. That's a skill in its own. But then also there's the whole other side of just a natural talent and the ear for music that, some people have to work towards that. Some people just have it. And that's almost more impressive to me, not knowing anything about what the notes are you're playing on your bass or something like that, to just be able to make it sound awesome without any restrictions. So I see it both ways. I'm kind of like I have to work real hard for it, like not like perfect every time type of musician. So I appreciate the people who can do it all just straight by ear.
Yeah, I mean, I never really learned to read music much. I went through some of those workbooks where you're learning the basic, how to read a staff and the notes and all that stuff, but I never learned to sight read at all. And I always felt like that made me like, well, I'm not really a musician if I can't do that.
No, I can see that being a way to think about it, but as a person who has read music, most of the people who are writing the music that you're listening to now probably don't know much about it or learned it after they learned their instruments. So it's not really that big of a deal. As long
Yeah,
as you end up learning the language of playing with somebody, whether there's written or not, like that's the real skill.
right. Being able to hear and react and like play with the group.
Yeah.
It's funny. I heard an interesting story of I think it was Steve Jordan, drummer. It was like a very accomplished drummer, plays with a lot of people. And he was talking about a particular sight reading revelation to him where he was a part of a ensemble of some sort. It might have been for a film or a play. I don't remember what the score was, but they were doing rehearsals and then had to come back in and record the part. And the guy, the conductor had put up the music for him to play, and he said, "I can't play that." He's like, "No, trust me, like you can play that." He's like, "No, I can't play that." And it was back and forth. And he said, the conductor told him, like, "You played that last time in practice. I just transposed it for you." So him seeing it made it seem more like complicated, but he actually knew how to do it.
Yeah. I've always, like, I can read where the notes are. I've always needed a little help with the reading rhythms a little bit. So there's many different ways to figure out music, and you don't need all of them, I've gotten by.
Yeah, for sure. Did you find it like a freeing experience the first time that you like free form jammed with people or jammed with people like out or played with people outside of that like classroom setting?
No, it was actually pretty hard for me because I'm not really like super trained in jazz, and a lot of the songs that we played were, this is the key, or you just change and it shows you what the key change is. After a while, it started getting a lot easier because I started learning more of the keys that guitarists write in. Like the keys that I play based in orchestra class, I might not be the same key that we're writing pop rock music in. So once you learn A, C, and G, you just need a couple others after that. But most of the songwriters that I work with write in mostly at least two of those.
What do you think drives that, the kind of like more limited keys that pop music tends to be in? Is it easier to sing in those keys, or is it just people are used to hearing
I'd
it?
say it's more of a vocal range thing for sure, because we've definitely had to change the key of songs more because of that than, because it just sounded better, or we just got it wrong accidentally, and it's fine.
Yeah.
You're all playing it together wrong, and that's all right too.
Well, yeah, as long as everyone's locked in on it. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because it's like a lot of songs tend to be in the same key. And I always wondered, is that because it's to sound like other things that have already existed, or is it just that's kind of the easier way to write?
Might be a little of both. Maybe you're just used to practicing singing along in the car growing up to this pop songs that are all mostly within 4 keys, 5 keys or so, and that's just what you've practiced the most. And that's what I think. It's just general ranges of different people. Like, only so many of the singers that we listen to now have epic ranges that people can't replicate,
Yeah, and I guess it's not always that useful or critical. It's like, it's cool if somebody has a really wide range, it can do like vocal tricks, but for the most part, the songs that are like, getting into the consciousness are very straightforward.
Yeah, I don't know much about singing myself. I'm not that great at it.
Well, I guess it's probably not a thing you'd think about picking up if you're constantly blowing through a horn.
That's true. I mean, I get to do some backing vocals with some of my bands, but yeah, my voice is mostly through the saxophone, I'd say, at that point.
Well, it is a very expressive instrument, because it's kind of got like the duality of the brass, but then the expressiveness, or sorry, the sound of the brass, but because it's reed, right? It's got a different expressiveness than other brass instruments do.
And it's also got these little leathery pads that close all the holes. So it just kind of like it's a soft closing and not just like a fret against the string that's all metal. It's, I don't know, I always think of it more of a vocal aspect than, a trumpet or trombone is, for sure.
Now, I didn't know that it has those leather things. Is that what allows people to make those real like guttural kind of blasts on the sax that you don't really hear on other brass instruments?
No, that's just someone in the back of your throat. You're singing and blowing at the same time. I haven't gotten it down yet myself. It's just humming. It's just humming through the saxophone, really. It's called a growl, but I haven't figured it out myself yet.
Okay, so that is actually coming from the vocal cords.
Yeah. So there's this dude, Colin Stetson. He plays like a big saxophone in Arcade Fire sometimes. He's got this whole video where he's got a microphone on his throat and contact mics kept picking up the pads going like percussive stuff. Saxophone's really a crazy instrument, yeah.
Whoa, so he kind of like does like beats with the valves?
Yeah, so he's doing weird harmonic stuff with just his throat, and then percussive stuff with the pads closing, and then also playing a note underneath it and growling through his throat. So I'll have to send you the video after.
Whoa, that sounds very interesting. That kind of like...
I don't know if any of that's usable, but that's definitely something interesting that I was thinking of right then.
Yeah, no, that's cool stuff. I mean, hearing about anyone pushing like the edges of what an instrument can do is always exciting.
Yeah, he's some weird avant-garde jazz dude. It's crazy.
So you mentioned that he plays like the big, long sax. There's 3 main types of sax?
I'd say there's 4 main types. Kenny G plays the soprano, and then the alto is the one everyone learns on, and then the tenor is like, to me, the most expressive one. Like alto is kind of like up there. The tenor's right in the regular singing range that we were kind of mentioning. Like there's a range that most people like to, it's pleasant to them. That's probably why they go to those notes. And then the baritone is the one that's like in all the old soul songs. And then that's not even the one he's playing. There's a bass, there's a contrabass saxophone, as you get to those, some of those, there's only probably like a couple thousand of them in existence or something.
So they're just a more rare instrument, like
Yeah, they're
because
probably as tall as the ceilings and stuff, like some of them.
how do you play that on a ladder?
It's all this weird stuff that, I mean, the whole saxophone has all the holes are throughout it the whole time, but your fingers are in two spots anyways. It's just really long metal
Yeah.
mechanisms and levers, and
So does those ones have to like sit on the floor actually, as opposed to
pretty
you're
much they're
holding it?
never going to leave a stand. Like they just sit there and then you go up to it, and maybe some of them you need to go up a little step thing to get up. I've never seen one in real life.
I need to find out if there's a saxophone ladder somewhere.
Well, then once
Specialized.
it's a saxophone ladder, it costs double. If you just need a regular ladder, that's a little hot tip.
Oh, of course. It's got to be like a guitar stool is obviously going to be a lot more than your typical stool.
Yeah. A record crate is the same exact thing as a regular crate, but it costs $25.
Yeah, because it looks cooler, right? It's going to take care of your vinyl better. So yeah, that's like a pretty interesting progression to go from, playing in school band and kind of more the classic stuff, and then like getting into punk music. And then I'm assuming that what you're doing now is blending those two worlds, because you're probably using a little more of your, music experience and nuance and instead of just straight ahead, punk style ska playing.
Well, mostly allow like my songwriter friends to like, I get input and all that, but like a lot of the vocals and the progressions of the songs come from my friends. I'm just kind of the guy in the band that plays the horn. I'm not necessarily writing too much of the music, but I also bring to the table I mostly joined some of these bands by booking them first and promoting the shows, and then yeah, that's how I started with these bands. Now it's nice to be like starting the project and getting it off its feet and getting a say in producing the music a little bit more, and it's cool.
So you said booking and promoting. Were you like doing that for venues or just for on your own, or like what were you booking and promoting?
I met probably a lot of your guests just by working at the Heirloom Arts Theater and the Empress before that. I wasn't booking at the Empress, but I was booking at the Heirloom, and then I started booking some ska shows in New Haven, and then I'd say a month later I was in one of the bands that I had booked, and then 2 years later I joined a different one that I had booked.
So you were like working at these venues and handling all the booking, or was it just like anybody who worked there could suggest bands? Or
it was a little of everything. We'd get someone running the email, and then like if one of my friends was coming through, I'd book the show, and then I promoted all the shows. I just booked the ones that I was interested in. It was kind of nice. You didn't have to I didn't have any pressure of filling anything. I just did things as they came along, no forcing anything.
yeah. What was your like experience like working at a music venue, like being on that other side? Did you see things about like how the business works or how, bands are that you maybe didn't see from the other side? Like, was it a lot more work than you thought, or was it a weirder kind of dynamic than you expected?
No, nothing really, I guess. Maybe it's just that it's a little more random than you'd think. Like sometimes or you're just getting older and you don't understand why things are cool. I don't know. We ended up with a lot of like metalcore shows and stuff, and I like a bunch of that music, but it was also like the really like over processed and produced type of stuff, which is less my cup of tea.
What kind of metal do you like usually?
What was that?
What kind of metal do you like usually?
I'm about like stoner metal and thrash metal, and I don't know. I like about anything,
All right, on. I can dig into that, man. I'm pretty big metal fan. I like the weird, obscure stuff too.
Well, I was listening to your episode with Alan, and like I'm friends with those. I helped run a record label with some of those guys and stuff. It was all crusty metal and grindcore stuff, and it's all cool to me,
Oh, right on. So what was the record label thing that you're talking about?
That one was Battle Stag Records. I ran that with basically the Sullust guys.
And what does running a record label entail? That, I'm assuming it was you guys started it yourselves, or was it something going on?
That was an interesting one. It was a little mixture of a previous record label and one that we were starting, but we mostly just helped fund records that a friend was putting out. We never really took on anything on our own completely yet. And then it fizzled out a little bit. We got busy doing other stuff.
So in that situation, is it just like getting people into the right studios, or is it, raising money for them? Like, what do you do to help at that level?
We just throw in like $100 to help get 107 inches made for somebody. And it would be something where the bands and like 2 or 3 record labels would all get together and kind of be self-distroed in that sense. Like 6 people are already selling a 2-way split instead of just the 2 bands or 1 record label. I also had to help put out this little band from Canada called Sum 41. Put that out on vinyl in America for the first time with Asbestos Records. I was working at Asbestos Records, and it's one of my claims to fame right there.
Oh, wow. So what do you mean by putting it out in America? Does that mean just finding places that are going to print them in America? Like, what does that entail?
So previously, that record was only printed out of 500 copies in Europe. It wasn't even pressed in Canada even, or anywhere in North America. And one day we were just going through all of the Universal Records releases and all their subsidiary releases. And I was like, to my buddy Flood, who owns the record label, I was like, the Sum 41 record is owned by them. And this is when all those Blink-182 records were getting reissued on vinyl, and they were selling like hotcakes. So I was just like, we should put that out. And we got it. They allowed us to.
Oh, nice. So how does that work? You just approach whoever owns the rights and say, like, can we press these for you? Like, what is that?
So there was a guy that was the music buyer for Hot Topic. Like the guy that would pick the records to sell at all the Hot Topics used to work for Universal Records. He got us in there. I don't know, it's just about connections, so.
Wow. Yeah, I have no idea how all that stuff works. It all seems like magic on the other side when you're like, oh, that's just what's supposed to happen. Or, that band got this because they're good enough or whatever.
Oh yeah, we put that out on vinyl probably like 11 years after the record came out. Like it wasn't a recent thing at all like that. It was like, it was just happened that no one had ever pressed it on vinyl before that moment in North America. And we were like,
oh, okay.
Let's try.
I thought you meant like at the time that record like broke,
No, yeah, definitely not that. I didn't do that. No, I think just at that time when the record came out, the vinyl wasn't a big thing. It came back after that time frame, so just for some reason it never came out.
Yeah. So on that tip about vinyl stuff, obviously that's been making this big comeback and stuff. Like, what's your 2 cents on that? Like, why do you think people are interested in that again?
I think because a CD is just going to break or get lost in your car or in your house. A record, you got to have specific space to put it and like kind of like take care of it. Even if you don't listen to it, that's just a good way for people to get the digital version of the record as well, and to get something tangible to make them feel good about supporting the bands that they like. I think that probably not as many people are listening to the records as they are selling. I'd guess they're just really cool collector's items, but also I'd like to hope everyone's actually listening to them, but that's just my theory on it.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is a world of trading and getting new releases and things like that. When something's, a hot release and you got to pre-order, and it's like a whole world of that, because then you can, the resale value and all that.
Like a CD costs cents to make and like mass produce, while a record takes a little more time and thought and, skill from people making the blanks and the, actually pressing them. So it's just a really cool collector's item that also contains the stuff you want to listen to on it if you have the time to actually. I guess now hopefully everyone's listening to more records since they're stuck at home, but before that I knew I was running around too much to maybe listen to my records as much as I had invested into them.
Yeah. Well, it is a different experience because you're right. You do have to interact with it. The side ends, you got to get up, flip the side over, start it again.
Yeah.
You can't just have a 2-hour playlist that then rolls into whatever the algorithm suggests. Like you have to physically engage with it.
Which is also the cool part about it. Like sometimes the ritual of doing that is also just as important as maybe if you're not using it.
Well, yeah, you're right, because there's that kind of like blank mind I'll get sometimes if I'm going to go on Spotify or whatever, like, what do I want to listen to? Like, what do I like? And then you have to like think about it and search it, as opposed to like looking at a pile of records and be like, oh, that's right, I like this one, I'll take that one. And like, it's a different kind of like building your library, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then it's just like the CD being like this big is only like when people are making artwork, it's just cooler to see it bigger as well. Like it's a thing you can put on the wall if you want. Like there's many upsides to vinyl, I think. So
yeah, the artwork for sure. In high school, I had a bunch of vinyls like up along the border of my room that was like, because of the artwork.
Yeah.
I listened to them sometimes, but it was mainly about the artwork. And I guess that's the thing we lose, with the digital experience. Although some bands get creative and try to do interactive things, or they might have, more videos or things that go along with it, but it doesn't last, It's like you can't go through your parents' Spotify playlist and see what they used to listen to.
Yeah, that's true, because I just did that recently. Picked out some more records from my mom's collection. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah, they travel. So as far as like, you've worked in venues before and you understand that side of it. And obviously with what's going on, venues are closed and a lot of them have been lost. Like, do you see something coming out the other side of that, better, or is it worse? Like, what do you think is going to happen with live venues?
Well, I already thought that there was basically none left almost, right? Like you get some good ones like Cafe 9 or something, which are just like, there's not many that are the right size for local bands to play at anymore. It's either they're too big or they're someone's kitchen or something, like too small. So the mid-sized venue or the small venues, I hope to see them around, but I also think that there was a lot up against them before this. So like the venues that I worked at don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Potentially someone's going to scoop in after, and Live Nation's going to have a bunch of mid-sized venues now and then corner the market even more. I hope not, but who else has the money? Well, I guess not them, but they're pretty broke right now.
Yeah, everything's up in a state of chaos because of it all. And it's strange, like you wonder, like, do you think people like care that much about seeing live music? Is it just like not that important anymore?
I don't know. I always thought from back in the day that like now everyone can just listen to bands before they get to see them instead of like being wowed by them in live, which even if I don't like something that's recorded, I might still give them a chance live. Some like this is mostly like local band size stuff. Of course, I'm not going to just drop $50 to go see some big band that I'm not sure if I like. But I still give them the shot live because like I've recorded a couple times. I still don't know everything about it. I don't know what's going to make it sound as great as maybe it should have. Like, and then there's this whole wave too, where everybody had their friend with a laptop and one microphone and we're just recording anything in the basement, putting it up on MySpace, and it didn't sound good, but they had content to put on MySpace. And people stopped going quite as much.
Yeah.
That's my theory, at least.
Yeah, you're right. There's been all these new like virtual platforms that people can put their music in such a exorbitant amount because anyone, as you said, with a laptop and microphone can just continuously upload stuff, and it's kind of like a battle of content. You're right. And
Yeah, like it was already watered down a little bit, like with just the amount of, people who want to live the dream of being a rock star. Who doesn't, right? I mean, yeah, that's what everyone's going for in the music scene, but like not everyone's going to be able to, unfortunately. And I don't know where I was going with that anymore.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. There's a lot of, kind of like a cheap buy-in to the whole thing without putting the work in maybe that it takes to do it all. And the passion, gets kind of diluted.
We're not understanding the work that you should have done necessarily, and then wondering why it didn't work. And it's like, you can't just throw $300 at something and hope that it's going to blow up now. It's like, no, you actually have to reach out to 700 places and hope that 10% of them will post your song or add it to a playlist or something. Like it's all about taking the shot and not feeling bad about rejection,
Yeah, you said the work that you should have done. Like, what's the work that you see people missing a lot that they're not doing?
Well, just like the general of just like, oh, I can just email some people that I know, or like find the contacts on some blogs and send an email out with a press release whatever you want. They're just going to copy and paste it and put it in anyways. Most of the places, like, it's just about spreading everything out and trying to, it's not just going to be, oh, I put out this song, how come it doesn't have 1,000 plays? My friends don't like it. It's like, your friends don't matter. You want to get more people than just your friends like to listen to the song. Come on.
Right. So that legwork to get your product out there to the broader audience.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a bunch of ways to do it, but that's one way that I work towards with it.
Yeah. That's good advice though. So I know obviously now everything's put on hold. You probably can't really have too much plans for the future with the music that you're, the Shady Street Allstars and stuff. Are you guys still practicing, or is it just a writing recording thing? Or do you have any hopes for shows? Have you had any shows during the pandemic?
We played like one camping event that in like the beginning of August, and it felt weird. Otherwise, no shows. We're trying to see if we can get a live stream, record us to put up as a live stream type of thing, like, do a little camera editing and a little polishing of the tracks, just mixing wise, like, so it doesn't sound like we have one phone in the middle of the room trying to pick up 3 amps and a saxophone, like with the cymbals getting crashed around. We've been practicing Shady Street Allstars. We started in February, like I was saying earlier, the rest in peace Kobe Bryant. Then like 5 weeks later or so is when the lockdown happened or something. So we were on a roll. Like we were ready to start booking shows after like 6 weeks and then couldn't. And then, I don't know, sometime in the middle of the summer, we all decided let's try and do a practice, and since then we've recorded 3 songs and trying to record another 5 or something maybe over the winter. We've been pretty good. I don't think anyone's really doing that much besides like if someone does have work and then practice,
Yeah, that's good that you guys are recording stuff and putting it out. I mean, it's kind of forced everyone to be put on hold. That whole like fear of missing out is taken out of the equation these days for musicians, because you don't see all the shows that people are playing. It's like, I want to play too. It's like,
yeah,
everyone's leveled, so you get to kind of like I guess you can see it as a breather. It sucks that it happens, but there is a different thing that you can focus on, without having to like, keep up the promotional side, I guess.
Well, like with the hindsight end of it, I think it's not a bad thing that where we're at with the things we're doing, because like I'm saying, after a couple of weeks, we thought we were ready to maybe open a show with a half an hour set or something, and like whether we were or not is not my point. It's that we're actually trying to like learn how to play with each other even better than that time frame where we just were trying to get ready to have a show. Now we're, you know, taking the breath that we need to maybe figure out some stuff that we might have found out 2 years later if we had just tried to do shows and not tried to focus on what we want to do. And, you know.
Yeah, sometimes there is that like rush to market feel where it's like, oh, we want to get out and play a gig because that's what's fun. And you might rush to it. And then I think sometimes a band can get stuck in a certain like, you know, developmental phase where you're just rehearsing a set, playing show, rehearsing set, playing show, and you don't really take that time to develop because it's like, what's the next show, you know?
I think that goes hand in hand. That thought goes with what I was saying earlier about the releasing music thing. Like some people are just too eager to do it without thinking about it sometimes. And like, that's what I'm appreciative of this little breather is it gives you time to reflect a little more and come up with new ideas and not, I mean, honestly, shows is a good way to get fans, but maybe now we could have a crazier first show than we ever would. Like, I don't know.
Well, I sure hope so. I mean, I definitely want to keep in touch and find out when that resurgence show will be. Well, I guess it'll be more like you're letting the beast out of the cage for the first time in that regard.
It will be nuts too, because hopefully around that time, like, because we actually do have another saxophone player that started the Shady Street Allstars with us, but he's still quarantining. Yeah. He's a scientist and stuff, and he's probably smarter than all of us, but I haven't seen him since March.
Yeah, well, I guess if he understands the implications, that makes sense, you know. It's definitely everyone's got to make their own calls with that. But for now, where can people find the music? You know, where can people get maybe in touch with you guys? Do you have, you know, the platforms and things like that, website or anything?
You know, we got right now Facebook and Instagram, and music's on everywhere. Like anything that digital distribution puts it out on, and Bandcamp as well.
Yeah. So just Shady Street Allstars on all of those will get people.
Yep. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, it's all everywhere.
Awesome, man. Well, you know, I'm glad that you guys are making use of the time. Bummer about the shows, of course, for all of us, but I think it's going to be that much more, you know, of a celebration when we finally can go back to playing shows, and hopefully we can be at your show when that happens.
Yeah, that would be dope. Yeah, maybe that'll be the good side of the music venue question you're asking earlier. It's just like, yeah, now everyone's going to be wanting to go out to them after this. We're all eager, so.
Yeah, it's like when Coke did New Coke, and then everyone's like, give me back old Coke. And they're like, all right, Coke Classic. And I was like, yeah, you missed it. Just make a venue called New Coke. I don't know. I should be asked to be Classic. Anyway, I'm going off too far on that. Wasn't that good of a metaphor anyway. Well, I appreciate you making the time to come on and talk about all this stuff, man. And I definitely look forward to, you know, the future of what you're doing here. Do you have any like, you know, final words of wisdom or advice for people, or, you know, maybe other bands who are going through this stuff, you know, to keep going through?
I think just try and brainstorm with your band members, like the things you do to write music. Try and work together to come up with other ideas, like whether that's who you know to help you come up with a live stream or help you record something, or it's all about contacts, you know, like I got this because of Jesse. My first recording ever was with Jesse.
So get in touch with Jesse. Is that the long story short?
Well, just it's all about who you know. Like that's what I put out that record because we knew the guy that worked at that. You know, it's just about. Yeah. I know that's going to be harder without face to face, but you know, you got to dive in and figure out what resources you have, and you know, who might be willing to help you out for cheaper, whatever your budget is.
Yeah, right. Absolutely, man. Well, good stuff. Looking forward to the future. And we definitely want to, keep in touch with you and see how things develop. And on the live stream tip, we might be able to work on that. It's something we've been trying to break into. We did a bit of that. So that's kind of where we're hoping to go with this thing, figuring that out. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for making the time to do this. And, we look forward to the future, obviously.
Excellent. Yeah, me too. And thanks for having me.
All right, man. Appreciate it. And we love you all. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. Bye. Sweet. So I'm assuming they'll jump back on for a minute, maybe.